writing this book. He begins it, and he says, we have seen fit to divide the discussion into this book, or to divide the discussion in this book into three parts. Part 1 will treat preliminary and introductory matters. Part 2, goals and objectives. Part 3, supplementary and complementary matters. The chapters of the first part will consider the goals in an introductory and preparatory way, or preparatory way, while the chapters of the third part are attached to them so as to complement and complete them. But the core of what we are seeking is contained in the middle part. As for the first part, it includes explaining the truth of what is to be said concerning the name, the named, and the act of naming. 2, exposing the errors into which most groups have fallen regarding this matter. 3, clarifying whether it is permitted for those names of God which are close to one another in meaning, like Al-Azim, Al-Jalil, Al-Kabir, could be translated to the immense, the majestic, the great, to be predicated according to a single meaning so that they would be synonymous, or must their meanings differ? Furthermore, it explains about a single name which has two meanings. How does it share these two meanings? Is it predicated of both of them as a general predicate of the things it names, as animal, for example, is said to, of a lion and lamb, or must it be predicated of one of them in particular? Finally, it explains how man shares in the meaning of each of the names of God. Great and glorious is He. The second part includes the clarification of the meaning of the 99 names of Allah, and the explanation how the people of the Sunnah reduce them all to an essence with 7 attributes, and how the doctrine of the Mu'tazila and the philosophers reduces them to a single essence without multiplicity. The third part explains that the names of God Most High exceeded the 99 by divine instruction, and explains how it is permissible to describe God Most High by whatever may qualify Him, even if no permission or divine instruction be found, so long as it is not prohibited. Finally, it explains the advantage of the enumeration and specification of the 100-1 names. So these are the parts of the book. Chapter 1 and the beginning of the book is a bit philosophical, but it is actually important to understand it. And it opens our perspectives and it opens horizons for us when we read it together. On showing the meaning of the name, the named, and the naming. Many have plunged into the matter of the name and the thing named, and taken different directions, and most of the groups have deviated from the truth. Some say that the name is the same as the thing named, but other than the act of naming, while others say the name is other than the thing named, but the same as the act of naming. Still, a third group, known for its cleverness in constructing arguments and in polemics, claims, that the name can be the same as the thing named, as we say of God Most High that He is essence and existent, that He is essence and existent, and that the name can also be other than the thing named, as in our saying that God is creator and provider. For these indicate creating and providing, which are other than Him. They are His actions, they are not Him. So it can be such that the name may not be said either to be the same as the thing named or other than it. As when we say knowing and powerful, both refer to knowing and power. Yet attributes of God cannot be said to be the same as God or other than Him. So he's explaining these divergences that they had in the Islamic philosophy. When we say Allah, for example, when we say the name of Allah, Al-Aziz, it is the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Al-Aziz. Does the name refer to, can the name be the same thing with the thing named? When we say Al-Aziz, does it mean that it is the essence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Or it is an attribute of izzah, of power? It is an attribute that His creation could have a share in it. So we have people, they say, the name is the same as the thing named, but it's not the act, it's other than the act of naming. You have the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For example, to apply it to Allah, this is just philosophy in anything. Just the name is, when we say this is Ka's, for example, they say is the name the same thing as the thing that is named, or no? So that's what they are trying to demystify, to understand. Applying this to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when we say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala Rahim, or when we say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala Ar-Rahman, when we say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala Al-Jabbar, is that His essence? Is it the same thing as the thing named? Is it the same thing that is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And different other than the act of naming. The act of naming is a human. It's the human who is naming. And we have the people, the group number B. They say the name is other than the thing named, but the same as the act of naming. The name is other than the thing named, but the same as the act of naming. Basically, they are saying that that name is just a perception of the creation of their creator. The asma of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for example, when we say Al-Aziz, when we say Al-Jabbar, these names are not, they do not tell us much about the essence of God subhanahu wa ta'ala. They tell us about the image that we have of God. They tell us about the perception that we have of God, that the human being must have of God. And there is a third group who makes nuances. He says some names are, some names are not. Some names are the same as His essence, some names are not. So now the dispute A and B, the two positions, comes down to 2 points. Whether or not the name is the same as the act of naming, and whether or not the name is identical with the thing named. The truth is that the name is different from both the act of naming and the thing named, and that those three terms are distinct and not synonymous. There is no way to show the truth of this matter without explaining the meaning of each one of the three words separately, and then explaining what we mean when we say X is the same as Y or X is other than Y. For this is the method of uncovering the truth in such things, and whoever departs from this method will not succeed at all. So he will go to the definition. For every asserted knowing, that is, whatever is susceptible of assertion or denial, is without doubt a proposition consisting of a subject and a predicate, a qualified and a quality, and the relationship of predicate to the subject. So it is inevitable that knowledge of the subject and its definition precede the assertion by way of conceiving its definition and its essential reality. So basically when we say Allahu Qadirun, Allahu Qadirun, Allah is the subject, Qadirun is the predicate, Allah is the qualified, Qadirun is the quality. He's telling us when we say Allahu Qadirun, it is inevitable, or God is all-powerful, it is inevitable that knowledge of the subject and its definition precede the assertion by way of conceiving its definition and its essential reality. So there is a reality, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when we say Allahu, there is a knowledge that is there, that precedes that quality, that khabar. Always the subject is bigger than, is greater and larger and than the predicate. Always the qualified has more to say about himself. We have more. We can say more about it than the quality that we are going to bring. Again, this is philosophy, it wasn't. So it's inevitable that knowledge of the subject and its definition precede the assertion by way of conceiving its definition and its essential reality, followed by the knowledge of the predicate and its definition by way of conceiving its definition and its essential reality. So we have two definitions. We have the subject and we have the predicate, and these are two realities. And they cannot be the same. They are not identical. It's not like saying Allah, Allah. We say Allahu Qadirun. You are qualifying God with something. And then attending to the relation of this predicate to the subject, whether it exists in it or is denied of it. For whoever wants to know, for example, whether angels are eternal or created, must first know the meaning of the word angel, then the meaning of the word eternal, or the meaning of the word created, and then determine whether to affirm or deny one of the two predicates of angel. So this is like for any example, for you to say that the water is sweet. For example, I'll give you an easier example. To say the water is sweet. So there is something called the water, we know it. But which water? Are we talking about the water in its, for example, in this example, are we talking about the water in general? Am I talking about this water? So we need to define the water. What do we mean by water? What do we call water? What's water? After that, what's sweet? So if I tell you the water is sweet, and we don't share the same definition of sweetness, I expect it to be sugary, because that's sweet. Sweet must have sugar in it, but I don't find sugar in it, I'll be deceived. There is no sugar. And tell me, I'll be disappointed. I'll tell you, no, this is not sweet. You tell me, yes, the water is sweet. For you, sweet means not salty. For you, sweet means not salty. For me, sweet means sugary. So then we will be having, and most of the time that's what's happening between the philosophers, and that's why Imam Ghazali is starting this chapter. So most of the time, people, they start debating like that without going back to what do you mean by, to the definition, to the terminology. And then they find themselves debating, and they're not talking about the same thing. They don't have the same definition of the same conception, the same definition of things. So we can have people saying angels are eternal. Others, they say angels are created. And they are debating, and they may send each other to prison, and they may make takfir of each other. While all what it takes is, what do you mean by eternal? Then when they tell you that what we mean by eternal, there is eternity, and there is the eternity of God, and there is another eternity, okay, of the creation. It's not the same thing. Okay. When you go to those who tell them angels are created, what do you mean by created? You mean that they will die and get birth? What do you mean by that? They will tell you no. Created. So can we make a created as opposite of eternal? I mean, in English here, you don't see the value of the debate and the complexity of the debate, because they already made an effort to translate the words in a way that we don't have that confusion between the word eternal and created in English. While in Arabic, the words that are for eternal, they use what? They use baqa, but what do they use? Created, they use what? Created. They use hadithat created, and eternal. What do they use for eternal? Qadim. So the word, this dichotomy between hadith and qadim made lots of problems, and the problem that they did not define what do you mean by hadith, what do you mean by qadim. That's why he says, first of all, let us understand what do we mean by angels? What are angels? What do you call angels? So what's water? What's sweet? And then we can say, okay, that relationship exists or does not exist. It is a third judgment. It is a third judgment. Now, if we have the same definition of water and the same definition of sweetness, we may still diverge or disagree. In explaining the definition and essential reality of the name, we say that things have existed in explaining the definition and essential reality of the name, we say that things have existence as individuals in speech or in minds. Existence as individuals is the fundamental real existence, while existence in the mind is cognitional, formal existence, and existence in speech is verbal and indicative. So here now he's is elaborating further. We say that things have existence as individuals. They have existence in themselves. They have existence in themselves. They exist as they are. They exist in speech. We talk about them, we refer in the world of reference. And they exist also in the world of the mind, of the imagination. So when we say water, water exists as water, physical water, in its essence. There is the word water, al-ma'. It exists. But also there is the image of water. And that image, so it can be different from person to another. Existence as individuals is the fundamental real existence. That's the existence. While existence in the mind is cognitional, formal existence, and existence in speech is verbal and indicative. So heaven, for example, has existence in itself as an individual reality. Then existence in our minds and souls, because the form of heaven is impressed in our eyes and then in our imagination. So that even if heaven were to disappear, for example, while we survive it, the representation of heaven would still be present in our imagination. This representation, moreover, is what is expressed in knowledge, for it is the likeness of the object known, since it is similar to it and corresponds to it, much as the image reflected in a mirror is similar to the external form facing it. This representation, moreover, is what is expressed in knowledge, for it is the likeness of the object known, since it is similar to it and corresponds to it, much as the image reflected in a mirror is similar to the external form facing it. So that's what we get. We get that reflection, not the essence. As for what exists in speech, so the image that we have, the imagination that we have in the world of reference, the cognitional, that is called the cognitional and formal existence. So he's telling you, in our imagination, the heaven is not, we have a reflection of the heaven. That's why actually we call it reflection. The reflection is called reflection because it's a reflection. It's a world of reflection. The world of imagination is a world of reflection in which all the things, the realities are reflected in it. Is that reflection always perfect? According to the perception and how clean it is, etc. So he's telling you what we have in our mind is like when we say it is this idea of heaven that I have in my mind is corresponds to the heaven. He said it's the same correspondence that we have between the reflection of the image in the mirror and the reality of the person who is standing in front of that mirror. As for what exists in speech, it is the word composed of three segment sounds. Now, the three segment sounds, the root. Now, when we go to the speech, it is the word composed of three segment sounds, the first of which expressed by the letter sin, and the second mim, and the third alif. So sama, as when we say sama, heaven. Our saying indicates what is in the mind, And what is in the mind is a representation of what which exists, which corresponds to it. Our saying indicates not the reality. Our saying, we are expressing what? What is in the mind. Our saying expresses what is in the mind. And what is in the mind is a representation of what which exists, which corresponds to it. For it, there were no existence in individuals. There would be no form impressed on the mind. And if there were no form impressed on the mind, and no man conscious of it, it would not be expressed in speech. So the word, the knowledge, and the object known are three distinct things. The word, the knowledge that we have of the word, and the object known are three distinct, or the word, the ism, the knowledge that we have of the thing named, and the object that is known or that is described are three distinct things, though they mutually conform and correspond, and are sometimes confused by the dull-witted, and one of them may fail to be distinguished from the other. So this is his representation. He's telling us that in the reality they are three different things. Three different things. There is the reality of the thing, there is the reflection of that reality in our mind, and then there is the expression of that reality through our tongue. So there is the reality of the thing, of anything. There is its reality in itself, the reality of that thing in itself. There is the reflection of that reality in our mind, and there is the expression of that reality in, or the expression of that reflection, actually, not the reality, the expression of that reflection of what we see, the expression of that conception in our language. So they are, in theory, they are three different things. It's hard. I mean, you have to dig deep to understand, but it's important to understand that they are three different things, because people would be diverging about or disagreeing about something, and just because they don't have the same reflection, they're not talking about the same thing. When I say, for example, when I say personal development, I'm referring to the developing the person. I'm referring to the word tazkiyah. The word tazkiyah in Arabic, for me, khalas, it's personal development. Another person, personal development for him or for her is, he has another image of it. It means people who are developing their persons. They are developing their persons to become more successful, for example. It may be, and then I give a khutbah and they say, Islam is all about personal development, for example. And the other person will be so upset. What are you talking about? How could Islam be all about personal development? Islam is not there to build our material selves. Islam is there to tell us to embrace God, to efface our existence in the existence of God, etc. How could it be about personal development? But I tell them that's what it means, personal development. Okay, so it may seem complicated, but it is very simple. Especially when he explains it at the end. He's telling us that there are three things. There is the word, the ism. There is the knowledge that we have of the thing, and there is the thing itself. And in theory, there are three different things. Our brain can see that there are different things. That there is a difference between the body in front of the mirror, the reflection of that body in the mirror, and the name that we are going to give to that thing. after that. So, three different stages in thinking. Three different stages? Episodes? Stages? Three different stages in thinking. How could these objects fail to be distinguished from one another, given the properties associated with each of them, which are not connected with the other? Insofar as man, for example, exists as an individual, sleeping and waking, living and dead, standing, walking and sitting, are all associated with him. So when we talk about the human being, insofar as man, for example, exists as an individual, sleeping and waking, living and dead, standing, walking and sitting, are all associated with him, these situations. But insofar as man exists in minds, subject and predicate, general and specific, universal and particular, proposition and the like are associated with it. So the man in the mind, it becomes it. It's not a reality. The man existing as a reality, he may be sleeping, waking, walking, sitting, standing. That's the reality. Now, the man in the mind is what? Is a subject. Is a subject. And we have predicates, we need to qualify. It's qualified, and we need to call it qualities to qualify him, qualification to qualify him. So it would be insofar as man exists in minds, subject and predicate, general and specific, universal and particular, proposition and the like are associated with it as a notion, as a conception. Because these are the things that are associated to conceptions. Is it universal conception or a particular conception? When I say man, am I talking about all the human being? Am I saying the human? Or I'm talking to the male? About the male, for example, we refer to it by man. Am I talking about the human in general? Am I talking about the universal man? Am I talking about the male? Am I talking about the man that the people who come to the masjid? I would say, did man eat? Did man eat? Am I talking about? He may think I'm talking about the human being. I say, do man eat? He will tell me, absolutely. He's talking about the universal man. Absolutely, man eat. He may be thinking that I'm talking about Muslim man during the month of Ramadan, between Fajr and Maghrib, and he will tell me, no, they don't eat, etc. So depending, is it as a concept, is it particular or universal? Is it subject or predicate? Is it general or specific? Is it etc.? And insofar as man exists in speech now, Arabic or Persian or Turkish are associated with it. So now in speech, when we say man, insan, the man, we can say he's Persian, he's Turkish, so that's what comes to mind. That's in the expression. So in the language, I'm sorry, when we say man, we can say insan in Arabic, we can say man in English, we can say in French we can say etc. So that's the expression. So that's what we call So there is the man, the reality of it, the man that is walking and sitting and all these attributes that are associated associated to him. The man is alive, the man is dead, the man is walking, the man is sitting, the man is sleeping, etc. Now, if the man is an idea, when we talk about an idea in the mind, the man, so it's a concept. We are talking about a concept. What are we talking about when we say the man? Are we talking about the general, the universal man? Are we talking about the particular man? Are we talking about a particular tribe? What are we talking about? What are we thinking about? What are we referring to? And then when we come to express that idea, when you say this is man, the Arabic I will say هذا إنسان, the English will say this is a man, the French will say ça c'est un homme, etc. So it's different. This existence is something which can differ from time to time and also vary according to the usage of countries, whereas existence in individuals and in the mind never varies with time or with cultures. The existence in the asma, this last one, is something which can differ from time to time and also vary according to the usage of countries, because there is progression in the language. Some words, what they meant in the 5th century, they don't have the same meaning now. If you have understood this, leave aside for the time being the existence which is in individuals and in minds, and attend to existence in speech, for that pertains to our goal. Now, if you understood that there are 3 existences, existence in the reality, existence in the mind, and existence in the speech, he's telling you, let us focus on the existence in speech. So we say, words consist of segmented letters, posited by human choice to indicate individual things. They are divided into what is posited primarily and what is posited secondarily. What is posited primarily is like you're saying heaven, tree, man, and the like. And what is posited secondarily is like you're saying noun, verb, particular, command, negation, and imperfect. These are like qualities of these words. Say that is a noun, that is a verb, that is a particular, that is a particle, that's a command, that's a negation. We have said that these are posited secondarily because the words posited to indicate things are divided into number 1, what indicates a meaning in something other than itself, and so is called a particle. Number 2, what indicates a meaning in itself. And the latter, what indicates meaning in itself, is divided into number 1, what indicates the time of the existence of that meaning, and is called a verb, like you're saying he hit, he hits, or he will hit. And number 2, what does not indicate time and is called a noun, like you're saying heaven or earth. First of all, words were posited to indicate individuals, after which nouns, verbs, and particles were posited to indicate the types of words. Because after being posited, words also became existent individuals, and their images were formed in minds, and so were suited in turn to be indicated by movements of the tongue. So when we say is telling you now, when we have, he's going in this, he's doing all of this to tell us that. Should we continue with it? Yeah, let us continue with it. But not today, but we'll continue with it. I'll try to simplify it next time more. This is the first time I'm reading it in English. It's a good translation, actually. It's good. It's not bad, but the fluidity of the Arabic text, you cannot find it. It's not as complicated as it sounds. It's not as complicated as it sounds. So he's telling you now for the asma, for the things as names. When I say ka'sun, for example, a cup. Okay, the first thing is the name of that thing. It's a cup. It's the name that we have of that thing. When you say the cup, that's the cup. But after that, depending, the word the cup itself became it has its own existence now, and then that it needs qualification, and we can call it verb, we can call it noun, we can call it particle, depending what it is. When we say, when we describe an action, a real action, and we say he drinks, for example, after that, the sentence he drinks has its own existence, and after that we can say, is it present? Okay, it can become past, he drank. It can become future, he will drink. It is conceivable that there be words posited in third and fourth place, so that when nouns are divided into types, and each division is known by a name, that noun will be in the third rank. As when one says, for example, that nouns are divided into indefinite and definite, or some other division. After that we say, okay, is ka'sun definite or indefinite? So imagine if someone comes to a class of Arabic, and I am saying Rahimun, definite or indefinite? Rahimun. The word Rahimun, definite or indefinite? You see? And she will answer indefinite. And the other person thinks that we are talking about God, and we said that God is indefinite, and then it becomes a blasphemy, and then you understand? Depending what we are talking about. So he said, when we talk about the nouns, why is he doing this? Because he wants to create that ease. So let us talk about the noun. We are going to talk about the noun. We are not going to be talking about the sacred essence of God. We are going to be talking about the noun. So when I can say about the noun, it is definite, it is indefinite. I can say it is صيغة مبالغة في التعظيم. You understand? It is an exaggeration. It is an exaggerated form. An exaggerated form. And then the person of the Aqidah will tell you, how come? Even if you exaggerate, as much as you exaggerate, absolutely God is even if you exaggerate, it's not an exaggeration because we are talking about God. Exaggerate as much as you want, because there is no mubalagha when you talk about God. That's from the Aqidah perspective, but from purely linguistic perspective, it is mubalagha. When you say Jabbar, it is sighat mubalagha. It is an exaggeration when you say Jabbar. When I say it is an exaggeration, now the philosopher, the word exaggeration means something else for him. Even the word exaggeration itself, the people of language, they know exaggeration is just when it means simply when you say the most superlative. Superlative. Or, no, it is exaggeration. It's not the superlative. It's a level of intensity in the description. Huh? Hyperbole. When you say Jabir, the one who mans the hearts, Jabbar, the one who mans the hearts a lot. It's an exaggeration. For the philosopher or the thinker, exaggeration is something you are exaggerating. So am I exaggerating when I say Jabbar? Yes. In the language, I am exaggerating. But I am exaggerating when I say God is Jabbar. You understand? Is it an exaggeration talking that God is actually able to mend all the hearts, etc.? No. So depending what we are talking about. Let us be patient with him. I think he is trying to lead us to what we call the relativity of language. That language is relative. And language is relative and God is absolute. And he's trying to emphasize and he's trying to dig deeper and deeper into this relativity of language. To open the minds of some people who were stuck and they were fighting a lot about these things in his time. So he's basically maybe trying to tell them that you are talking about different things. That's why you are fighting. Now, if you understand that the name is simply the word posited for indicating So if one says to us, what is the definition of a noun? We say, it is a word posited to indicate. And you might add to that what distinguishes it from particles and verbs. At this time, our goal is not to formulate the definition precisely, but simply to show that what is intended by a name is the meaning which is in the third rank, which belongs to speech, leaving aside what is in individuals or in minds. We are not even talking about the meaning of that. It's like in grammar. It's like in Arabic class. I tell me what is rajulun in this sentence? Indefinite. You have to answer indefinite noun. If someone says rajulun is a man, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about what is rajulun. The position in the sentence, the function of rajulun in the sentence. How do you qualify it? You have to tell me it is an indefinite noun. Now, if it is in sentence, inside in the middle of the sentence, I say قتل رجل رجلا. Okay. قتل رجل رجلا. A man killed a man. And they tell, what is رجل? If you answer a man, I'll tell you, no, that's a stupid answer. That's not the answer. You have to tell me رجل is the actor, the subject. And I tell you, what is rajulan? You tell me a man. Come on, that's not what I'm talking about. What is rajulan here in this sentence? You have to tell me it is object of the sentence. Now, if you understand that the name is simply the word posited for indicating, you should know that everything posited for indicating has a positor, a positioning, a positing, and the thing posited. Now, if you understand that the name is simply the word posited for indicating, now we are talking that the noun is the thing, you should know that everything posited for indicating has a positor, a positing, and the thing posited. The thing posited is called the named, and it is the thing indicated insofar as it is indicated. And the positor is called namer, while the positing is called naming. So there is the named, the namer, and the naming. One says that someone names his son when he posits a word indicating him, and his positing is called naming. The term naming may also be applied to mentioning the name posited, as when one calls a person saying, "Oh Zaid," we say that he named him. But if he said, "Oh Abu Bakr," we say he named him by his kunya. So the term naming is common to positing the name and to mentioning it, although it seems that positing is more deserving of it than mentioning. This translation doesn't make sense a bit. I'm not going to stop. Naming and named are analogous to motion, moving, mover, and moved. And these are four different terms which indicate different notions. Motion indicates transition from place to place, while moving refers to the initiation of this motion, and mover to the agent of the motion, while moved indicates the thing in which the motion is, along with its coming forth from the agent, unlike the moving one, which refers only to the place in which the motion is and not to the agent. If the meanings of these terms are now clear, let us consider whether it is possible to say about them that they are the same or different from one another. Naming, and named are analogous to motion, moving, mover, and moved. So name is motion, naming is moving, and named could be mover or moved. Or actually, name is motion, naming is moving, named is moved, namer is mover. And these are four different terms which indicate different notions. Motion indicates transition from place to a place, while moving refers to the initiation of this motion. Mover to the agent of the motion, while moved indicates the thing in which the motion is. What is moving? Along with its coming forth from the agent, unlike the moving one, which refers only to the place in which the motion is and not to the agent that is moving it. If the meanings of these terms are now clear, let us consider whether it is possible to say about them that they are the same or different from one another. This question will not be understood, however, unless one knows the meaning of different from or other than and same as. This question will not be understood, however, unless one knows the meaning of different from or other than and same as. Our saying is the same as is used in three ways. One way corresponds to saying, for example, wine is wine, or khamr is uqar. These are two different names of the same thing. Or lion is layth, that's lion is lion. Lion is asad. Asad is layth. It doesn't work in English. So two different names for the same thing. In Arabic language we have two names for the same thing. So we call the wine khamr, we call the wine uqar. We call the lion asad, then we call the lion layth as well. So we can say khamr is the same as uqar because it's the same thing. Lion is the same as layth because we are talking about actually the same thing. This goes for everything which is one in itself, yet has two synonymous names whose meanings in no way differ, neither by addition or subtraction, but only in their letters. Such names are called synonymous. The second way corresponds to the saying, the sharp sword is the sword. The sharp sword is the sword. As-sarm huwa as-sayf. Or the sword made of Indian steel, al-muhannad, is the sword. What am I talking? If I say, okay, the porcelain made in China is the porcelain. What am I saying? What I am saying? Well, I'm talking about the authenticity here. I'm talking about something else. It's another meaning. It's not the same. I'm not giving a synonymous. When I say al-muhannad huwa as-sayf, means I'm saying that's the true and authentic sword. Other swords are not good. That's the good sword. This differs from the first way, for these names differ in meanings and are not synonymous. For sarm refers to a sword insofar as it is cutting, and muhannad points out to the sword's relation to India, while sayf refers merely to the thing indicated with no indication of anything else. Only synonymous terms differ simply in their letters and not in any addition or subtraction. Only synonymous terms differ simply in their letters and not in any addition or subtraction. So let us call this category interlocked, since sword enters into the comprehension of the three terms, while some of them indicate something more along with it. The third way occurs when one says snow is white and cold, so that white and cold are one, and white is the same as cold. This is the more far-fetched way, since their unity is due to the unity of the subject posited with the two predicates, meaning that one individual subject is qualified by whiteness and coldness. In short, our saying it is the same as indicates a plurality, which is one in some respect. For if there were no unity, one could not say it is one with, and without a plurality, there would be no it is identical with, for this expression indicates two things. Let us return to our purpose and say, whoever thinks that the name is the same as the named, by analogy with synonymous terms, as in saying Asad is Layth, for example, commits a serious error. So when I say Ar-Rahim is synonymous of Allah, we are committing a serious error. That's what he's saying. For the meaning of named is different from the meaning of name, as we have shown that the name is a word which indicates whereas the named is the thing indicated, and it may not even be a word. Furthermore, the name is Arabic or Persian or Turkish, as posited by Arab, Persian, or Turk, whereas the thing named may not be of that sort. In asking about the name, one says, "What is it?" But in asking about the named, one might say, "Who is he?" As when a person is present, we say, "What is his name?" And someone says Zaid, while if we ask about him, one says, "Who is he?" And if a handsome Turk is named with an Indian name, it will be said that the name is ugly, but the one named handsome. His names for Turks. For Turks, they will find Indian names ugly. Okay? Or if he is named with a multi-lettered name, which is burdensome to articulate, it will be said, the name is burdensome, yet the one named is light. Furthermore, the name may be a figure of speech, but not the one named. Or the name may be changed in translation, but not the one named. All this should apprise you that the name is other than the thing named. If you ponder, you will find differences other than these, but the discerning one is satisfied with a little, and the dull-witted will only be confused by more. So let us stop here. Let us stop here and we'll make a summary of what's coming after. We won't read all the paragraphs because there is no need. This is ilm al-kalam. This is in the same time the pride and the pain of Islam. Ilm al-kalam is in the same time the pride and the pain of Islam. It is the pride of Islam because it is much better than philosophy. It is more precise, and it reached maturity that the philosophy did not reach, hasn't reached yet. Ilm al-kalam reached a maturity with the logic and with the possibilities, and it reached a certain maturity that the philosophy hasn't reached yet. And the specialists in these fields, they will tell you this. It is a pride, Islamic thinking. They call it the Islamic thinking. And when you go and is it Islamic? But it is the thinking, Muslim thinking or Islamic thinking. It is. We can call it Islamic thinking, the art of Islamic thinking, ilm al-kalam. It is very beautiful when it is well explained, and when it is explained to the people who are ready to understand it, etc. But in the same time, it became the pain. It became the pain because it dries the spirit. It dries the spirit, subhanallah. It's emotionless. You find the Sufis in general, they hate ilm al-kalam. They call it ilm al-kilam. They use, because kilam means hurting. You know the word kallamahu. You know the word kalama, the root kalama. It could mean to speak, but also it means to open an injury. So the Sufis, when people start like talking and making this difference between name and named, etc., they find it very hard. They find it very hard, and they find it useless. Then they find it not the Sufis, the lovers. yes, if that's how we introduce God, and if that's the only way we talk about God, and that's the only way we talk about religion, it is a pain. It becomes a pain. It dries the spirit, and it creates a generation of people who are just they know how to talk about these deep things, and without going into the depth of anything, of the thing itself. I mean, it's a complicated, but it's not deep. All of this description is complicated, but it's not deep. It doesn't bring us closer to God in any way. In any way. It doesn't make us... but somehow there is an opening that happens to the mind when it is well articulated, like there is an opening that happens to the person when he is well articulated, when he speaks well. There is an opening that happens to the mind when he thinks well, when he positions the ideas well, when he knows this is here, this is there, this is there. And we know that lots of confusions that are happening to people today are because of the lack of mantiq, lack of logic, that we don't take the time to define, to say, to put our definitions, and we just start talking about things like that and quarreling. What do you think about this? What do you think about this? And we don't give the definition. What do you mean by this? And we start our conversation. What do you think about this? Do you think that this is that? Do you think that this is like this? And then I don't think so. How could you not think so? I think so. But okay, wait a moment. What do you mean by this, first of all? And what do you mean by that? We don't take the time to we see here Imam Ghazali is doing it in a very precise way, in a very articulated way, but also, wa alaikum salam, we're going to have iqamah for Asr right away. Yeah, but also in a very, I would say, elongated. He's insisting on it. We have to understand that Imam Ghazali approach is not just to explain things, is not merely to explain things, but he has that aim to show how ridiculous are the opponents. He has that aim to show them that, basically to show them how many things they missed. So that's why he is going into the details of the details of the details of these things. And there is a historical matter in Ilm al-Kalam, and it's not, he's not just bringing up these ideas like that. There was a need to respond to the philosophers at some point. But for us, coming 99 beautiful names of God, and explaining it like that, and you have this person, this layman, this Muslim wants to learn about the 99 beautiful names of God, finding himself reading this introduction, it's a pain. It's a pain. That's not what I'm expecting. The 99 beautiful names of God, I'm expecting to tell me beautiful meanings of the name of Ar-Rahim. We are trying to move our hearts with the names of God, because that's what the names of God are for. They are there to move our hearts first. They are there to speak to the heart first. God is introducing himself to us through names that are close to our imagination in purpose. In purpose, he called himself a name that reminds us of the mother, and he calls himself a name that reminds us of the father, and he calls himself a name that reminds us of the friend, and he calls himself names that remind us of the neighbor. in order for us to engage emotionally in a relationship with Him. That's the purpose in the reality of the Asma. The problem that the philosophers, they took these things and they made them, oh, is this a matter of aqidah? Is this a matter of conception? Is that how we should conceive God? So is rahmah His essence? If His rahmah, so to introduce you why He's not wasting His time, not our time. It's a deep thing. It's a deep thing because stupidity exists, unfortunately, and at some point people died. People died, really, quarrels, fights outside of the masajid and inside of the masajid about when you say God is beautiful, Allah Jameel. Is beauty the essence of God? If you say the beauty is essence of God, how could God create ugly things? Are you saying that that's beautiful? If you say that God is just, fair, just is the essence of God? Essence of God, okay. How could God, who is just in His essence, create things that are not just? You understand? And then you have, no, it's a just. How could you call that just? These people are killing kids. How could you call what's happening in Palestine just? How could you call what happened to slaves, to black Americans, like one of the biggest injustices that is still happening? How could you call that justice? How could you call that justice, for example? And then, etc., etc., etc. So you know from where these things happen? So that's why he's giving all this introduction now because they brought the names of God to the Aqidah while they shouldn't. They shouldn't. After that, he's going to bring them to the 7, and he's going to tell us there are 7 names that we can be contented with if we want to conceive God. Yes, the 99 names of God, they help us to conceive God, to have a conception of God, but also, and I would say mainly, and most importantly, God has presented Himself like that in a poetic language. The Quran is a poetic text, it's not a scientific text. And are you saying Quran is poetry? No. Wait. No. God Himself says Quran is not poetry. Listen. Did He say it is a book of mathematics and science and physics? When I say it is a poetic text, I mean by that, it has the same aim. It has the same purpose of a poetic text. The poetic text speaks to what? Speaks to the heart. So the Quran, I would say, mainly is there to speak to the heart, but it is there to speak to the mind. It is there to speak to the being of the human being as a complete being. It is there to speak to the mind. It is there to speak to the heart. It is there to speak to the being, but it is there to speak to the heart first. It is there to engage our emotions first. We see that the Quran as a text is there to engage the emotions first, to create this, to stir this hope, sometimes this fear, another time this attachment, another time, etc., to train our emotions to respond to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to respond to God. And the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are like that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to create a certain emotion in our heart, or wants us to more than a conception. It's an emotion in our heart that is meant to be created first when He calls Himself Ar-Rahim, when He calls Himself Al-Adl, when He calls Himself Al-Muntaqim. It's not for you, how about intiqam, vengeance, venger? How could God tell us to not seek revenge, while Himself is venger? And you have these questions, and people, they get so confused. I took this book of the 99 beautiful names of God, and I find myself shocked because it says that God is avenger, they call them, or avenger. How could he be avenger while he's telling us to not seek vengeance? But it's not the same. It's not the same. Muntaqim, first of all, does not mean avenger. It should not be translated to avenger. But even if you want to translate it to avenger, it is speaking to your emotions for a particular thing, to move your heart in a certain direction, because you need, for your emotional maturity, you need to fear God. And you need to know that God won't let it go. That injustice that you are committing against your brother or against your sister, God won't let it go. The criminal needs, the criminal wants to progress in his cheminement spirituel, in his spiritual journey. If he doesn't get fed and nourished, if his fear does not get nourished, that be careful, God is avenger. God won't let this go. If you don't seek forgiveness, if you don't make tawbah, be careful. It's not because you raped that woman and no one saw you and she has chosen to keep silent, for example, because she did not want to add salt to injury, because we know the society, it's not pride to say, I got, for example, if you know that God is avenger, it's for a particular thing, to create a particular feeling. That's what I would say. The 90 names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are there to create feelings towards God, more, and to create feelings inside us more than anything. More than anything. Absolutely, yes, we can use them to create a conception of God. That will be more complicated. So all of his introduction is to respond to those who use these names to create a conception of God. And some of them, they say, the sifat of Allah are all his asma. The qualities of God are all his names. So, but what do you mean by the quality of God? But what do you mean? Is it an intrinsic quality of God? Is it a name that is supposed to create a feeling, a perception of God for a particular thing, for a particular moment, or a particular person? What do you mean by that? So that's the background of this whole book. It will go smoother. It will go smoother. It will go smoother. It will go softer. And I forgot that the introduction was this painful, and I was hesitating last time. Should I read it? Should I not read it? Should I just jump into the chapter of just explaining each name, and that was the aim, that was the purpose of this halaqah. But ala kulli hal, it doesn't hurt some philosophy like this to understand it. Bismillah. الله يفتح علينا وعليكم. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله. ربنا انفعنا بما علمتنا. ربي علمنا الذي ينفعنا. ربي فقهنا وفقه أهلنا وقراباتنا في ديننا مع أهل القطر أنثى وذكر. ربي وفقنا وفقهم لما ترتضي قولا وفعلا كرما، وارزق الكل حلالا دائما، وأخل أتقياء علما نحظى بالخير ونكفى كل شر. ربنا اصلح لنا كل الشؤون، وأقر برضا منك العيون، واقض عنا ربنا كل الديون قبل أن تأتينا رسل المنون، واغفر استر أنت أكرم من ستر. وصلاة الله تغشى المصطفى من إلى الحق دعانا، والوفاء بكتاب فيه للناس شفاء، وعلى الآل الكرام الشرفاء، وعلى صاحب المصابيح الغرر. اللهم اهدنا بنورك لنورك فيما يرد علينا منك، واهدنا بنورك لنورك فيما يصدر منا إليك، واهدنا بنورك لنورك فيما يجري بيننا وبين خلقك يا كريم. صلي وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله، واجعل ما نحن فيه خالصا لوجهك الكريم. ربنا لا تؤاخذنا نسينا وأخطأنا. ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا، وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب. اللهم قنا شرور أنفسنا يا أرحم الراحمين يا رب العالمين، واحفظنا ولا تؤاخذنا بسيئات أعمالنا، ولا تؤاخذنا بما يقول السفهاء منا، ولا تؤاخذنا بما يفعل السفهاء منا يا أرحم الراحمين يا رب العالمين. لا تحجبنا عن رحمتك بشيء، لا تحجبنا عن رحمتك بشيء يا من وسعت رحمته كل شيء. لا تحجبنا ولا تبعدنا عن رحمتك بشيء يا الله يا الله يا أرحم الراحمين يا رب رب العالمين. يا من وسعت رحمته كل شيء، يا الله يا الله يا أرحم الراحمين، لا تبعدنا ولا تطردنا عن رحمتك بشيء. يا من وسعت رحمته كل شيء، لا تبعدنا عن رحمتك بشيء، ولا تفصلنا عن رحمتك بشيء، ولا تخرجنا من دائرة رحمتك بشيء. يا من هو قادر على كل شيء، ويا من وسعت رحمته كل شيء، اجعل رحمتك في كل شيء يا أرحم الراحمين، واجعل رحمتك ظاهرة وباطنة يا أرحم الراحمين في هذا الشيء الذي استعملتنا فيه. يا نعم المولى ونعم النصير. وصلي وسلم وبارك على سيدنا حبيبنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه الطيبين الطاهرين، والحمد لله رب العالمين. فاتحة آمين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين، غير المغضوب عليهم